Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Kruger, I join and concur in the remarks of my colleague, Senator DeFrancisco, but I'd like to be a little more isolated in my approach and speak to the education portion of this budget, if that's possible. And, Mr. President, I would ask for a slight modicum of latitude here because there are two education bills and there are separate parts, but I'll try and keep my remarks on both as it relates to this bill. Senator Kruger, how many restorations, how much dollar restorations are there in the education budget?
Senator Kruger.
Through you, Mr. President, this budget restores $600 million to a $1.4 billion cut proposed by the governor.
Senator Flanagan.
Senator Kruger, continue to yield.
Yes, I do, Mr. President.
Senator Kruger, I have in front of me the bill that we are discussing, which is, amongst the pile of bills, approximately 840 pages. Is there a property tax cap in this bill?
Senator Kruger.
Through you, Mr. President, no, there is not.
Senator Kruger, continue to yield.
Yes, I do.
This 840-page bill, is there a ban on unfunded mandates?
Senator Kruger.
Through you, Mr. President, not in that bill, but in the 7 language, there is provision to bar unfunded mandates, yes.
Senator Flanagan.
That's in the next bill.
Right.
Mr. President, would Senator Kruger continue to yield?
Yes, I do, Mr.
Senator Kruger yields.
Again, referring to this bill we have before us, is there any increase or restoration for library aid?
Senator Flanagan.
Senator Kruger, continue to yield.
Yes, I do.
Senator Kruger, I'm looking at and listening to your discussion about the numbers, and I know we're all going to have to go home at some point and try and explain to our school boards, our superintendents, and more importantly, our constituents and taxpayers some of the actions that have been taken here. In this bill, or in this education portion of the budget, could you explain to me the $95 million cut to school districts for data issues?
You, Mr. President, it's a complicated answer, so I'll take it in pieces. Through you, Mr. President, we froze the November database at $95 million. There's a $60 million MTA payroll tax reimbursement for school districts that we're and $35 million
to the main update to the main database.
And added $35 million to the main database.
Kruger, continue to yield.
Yes, I do.
Senator Kruger continues to yield.
Senator Kruger, the $95 million that I'm referring to definitely deals, as you said, with the November data. And basically our school districts and ultimately our taxpayers have expected that their aid would be reflective of their enrollment, of their programmatic changes, particularly as it relates to the area of special education, which is one of the most challenging issues for every district in the state of New York. So the expectation would be that as the data changes, that would be reflected in the aid that they're going to receive. You and your colleagues in the Democratic majority have now chosen to freeze that data, which in reality is a $95 million cut to school districts tantamount to them being told, you had an expense-driven aid, but guess what? Now you don't have it anymore. Unless I'm missing some portion of the language, this doesn't have anything to do with the MTA payroll tax. This is strictly tied to data that affects school districts. And I actually took a look at a couple of examples. So if I could illustrate, I looked at Connecticut School District. The restoration over the governor's cuts was roughly 1.37 million. But now, 742,000 of that is going to be taken away. That's just one district in Suffolk County. Central Iceland, they were going to get a restoration of roughly 2.1 million, but now you're taking 830,000 of that back. Buffalo, they were going to get a $7.3 million restoration, but now you're taking 1.3 million of that back. So the reason I'm asking these questions is because when we go home, we're going to have to explain the nuances and the details. So could you enlighten me as to why you made reference to the MTA payroll tax when, in my review of this, it has absolutely nothing to do with it?
Mr. President, the $16 million MTA payroll tax plus the $35 million bump collectively is the $95 million that we're talking about as an offset.
As an offset to what?
To the $95 million cut.
Where exactly is the portion that you're referencing as it relates to the MTA? Because let me,
do you continue to yield?
let me preface it by saying,
Yeah, please,
by saying this.
Mr. President, can you be more specific?
Yes, I can. I have a list right here that certainly you have and your staff has that is provided to us by the State Education Department. Here's the $95 million in cuts. It doesn't say MTA. It doesn't say anything about the MTA. This is $95 million statewide. I referenced the number in Buffalo. I referenced two numbers in Suffolk County. This is a statewide hit to school districts. The MTA, the $60 million, that should be completely separate and have actually nothing to do with this. So my specific question is, when I'm looking at this list of $95 million statewide, can you express to me where the MTA language is in this bill that relates to your contention?
Through you, Mr. President, once again, the $16 million that was restored to the budget, MTA, to the MTA portion, plus the $35 million bump, collectively offsets the $95 million cut.
Senator Flanagan.
Mr. President, Senator Kruger continue to yield.
Senator Kruger, will you continue to yield?
Yes, I do.
Senator Kruger yields.
Okay. I can just speak for the districts that I represent. No one is going to look and say, oh, that $60 million for the MTA payroll tax is an offset. That's something they expected, and there were lots of people on the other side who talked about restoring that money for school districts. What's the $35 million? What's that bump that you're referring to?
Through you, Mr. President, there is an additional update to the May database that drives to the school districts the additional $35 million.
So would it be fair to say that your contention is that...
Senator Kruger, do you continue to yield?
Yes, I do.
Would it be fair to say that your contention is that there's no $95 million cut at all?
Through you, Mr. President. No, let's not twist or confuse, but let's stay, at least I want to stay on point. There's a $95 million cut. There's also $60 million MTA, $35 million readjustment of the May database. Together, $95 million. $95 million is driven back in to offset the $95 million cut.
Senator Flanagan.